AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. We've got a lot to cover with Stephen Bucci, so we best get right to it. A lot of developments and theaters of war. In Israel, that ceasefire violated. 2 soldiers killed, 3 wounded after gunmen emerged from a tunnel and launched an RPG attack in Rafah, southern Gaza. The ambush happened inside an area under Israeli control as part of the ceasefire deal. The troops were clearing Hamas tunnels when the attack hit. The reporting is RPGs slammed into an excavator. Sniper fire followed, and reinforcements came under fire too. In response, Israeli Defense Forces launched a wave of airstrikes targeting tunnel systems and positions tied to the gunmen. And then Netanyahu ordered all Gaza crossings closed and halted humanitarian aid. That was in response to what Israel called the ceasefire violation I just described. But after pressure from the Trump administration, Israeli officials say the decision has been walked back. Aid deliveries will now resume today, this morning, though the Rafah crossing remains closed for now. Israel says it won't reopen Rafah until Hamas speeds up the return of hostages and the bodies of fallen soldiers. And the airstrikes are ongoing. So, unsurprisingly, this is not going to be a straight line in terms of a sustained peace in the region, particularly when you're dealing with a Hamas, a terrorist organization, that is. Trump had this to say in his sit-down with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend about Hamas and disarming Hamas. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet.
Well, they promised they would. They said they would. It's down that they would. Now, they said they were gang members, et cetera, But these are very violent people. This is a very violent part of the world. Nobody's seen violence like this. If we have to, we'll disarm them.
The U.S.?
Well, whether it's me or the U.S. or it's, a proxy, could be Israel, with our backing. We won't have boots on the ground. There's no reason to. So they killed 1,200 people in the October 7th attack. It was an attack. They killed 1,200, but Israel can say that we killed 50,000. And so you'd say it's a whole new set of people. And it is. I mean, they get replaced by other people, young people. But we're going to find out. So it's not a hard timeline, but it's a line in my own mind. And at a certain point, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then we'll have to do it for them.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer, a top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you for joining us, as always.
It's always my pleasure to be on the show, Dan.
So Trump reiterated what he had said last week, which is either they disarm or I will disarm them. But what is your reaction to this this incident? And I mean, and soldiers were killed. I mean, this is not inconsequential. This incident that led to renewed hostilities.
Well, it's sadly, I'm not surprised. Actually, I'm kind of surprised we got this far, from the signing to now before we had an issue like this. Hamas is not an exceedingly disciplined organization. It's got a lot of folks who are, they're true believers, and and they think they're killing, and terror is religiously mandated. So, you get individuals who say, well, I don't care what the bosses say. I'm not going to give in and work with Israel. I'm going to go take it in my own hands. Or, the Hamas leaders think like that, so they could have been an ordered thing as well, pushing the limit. This is what they've always done. Okay, we've got an agreement. Let's push back a little bit, see what we can get away with. at least under this particular framework. So, if anything, we're going to see more of these. Israel's reaction, look, President Trump needs to understand if Israel is getting screwed, he can't, order them to sit back and not do anything. That's what previous administrations have done with Israel, and it didn't work. And that's not the way Netanyahu has been fighting this war. He'll help President Trump as much as he can, but he's going to have a point where he can't do that. He'll lose the right side of his coalition if he does. And now that the hostages, the live ones particularly, are back, and we're working on getting the ones who are deceased back, even the left side of the Israeli political spectrum is not going to be as, upset if he goes and in retribution whack some more Hamas people, because they've gotten what has been their big lift, which is the hostages and the bodies. We've got to, this stuff is going to go on. You can't tie Israel's hands. That's what the other parts of the West wanted to do all this time. America has not done that. We can't start doing it now. That's just not the right thing. So,
yeah, but I mean, what you do seemingly have is, I mean, pardon my roadhouse metaphor, but you have Trump as the cooler. And and he's basically telling Netanyahu, when do we fight? You'll know when we fight when I tell you it's time to fight, and he's going to be the backstop. I mean, that's basically what he's saying.
It is what he's saying, and frankly, I trust him saying it way more than I have any other person sitting in the White House. But Netanyahu is not, a subordinate of Donald Trump.
No, right.
He's working with him. At a certain point, if stuff starts to happen and Trump says, no, be cool, wait, and Netanyahu says, I'm sorry, Mr. President, it's like the attack on Qatar. They knew President Trump was going to be ticked about that, and they did it anyway because they thought it was in their interest to do it. They had to back off a little bit after that, but I don't know how many times Netanyahu will do that.
I want to move to Eastern Europe. Zelensky was in town peddling his wares and asking again for tomahawks. Here's how he characterized the state of play with the war. Russia not winning, Ukraine not losing.
We are not losing this war, and Putin is not winning. And really, his army now in the weak position. I think so, because they really, from the beginning of this war, they could occupy 1% of our land, but they spend 1,300,000 people.
And Zelensky needs help to put more pressure on Putin.
Enough pressure on him, and he will be ready. In any way, he is afraid of his society. More pressure on him, and not so comfortable life for his nation. They will pressure on him. He afraid only of his society, because he wants to be president till he will die. And that's why, of course, he needs society to support him. That's why he count on continuation of this war. And that is what the big question, the big challenge for all of us. That's why I'm not sure that in Budapest he will be ready. But if, God bless, the president will pressure on him, and if Putin will be ready for any format, again, I'm sorry that I'm repeating, any format of negotiations, bilateral, trilateral, any kind of, I think it will be good.
Trump on the tomahawks specifically, he's not quite ready to commit to that yet, he told Bartiromo.
We can't give all of our weapons to Ukraine. We just can't do that. And I've been very good to President Zelensky and to Ukraine, but we can't give, if we're going to be short, I don't want to do that. I can't jeopardize the United States.
So, Stephen Bucci, does Zelensky have it right that more pressure on Putin and making life uncomfortable for ordinary Russians can, however that's going to be affected, can put the necessary pressure on him to bring him to the table, maybe by the time Trump meets with him in Budapest, maybe not?
I don't think by Budapest I don't think it's doable. I mean, we can communicate to Putin that we're supporting Zelensky and put pressure on him that way. I don't think it's necessarily going to get us over the finish line by Budapest. I think Budapest is part of that process of communicating that to him. And I have to say, Zelensky's characterization there of Russia's not winning, Ukraine's not losing, while that's, obviously from his point of view, that's a bit optimistic, it's not incorrect. You think about it, Russia should have crushed Ukraine, in the first weeks of this conflict. They didn't. The Ukrainians are hanging in there. They're holding off Russia, in some cases taking things back from Russia. They even have some of Russia. But on the other hand, Ukraine's taking a beating. Every day, the Russians are hitting more and more civilian targets. So he has some good points. And I think President Trump was amenable about the Tomahawks until someone, probably his military and logistical people, said, hey, boss, we don't have an unlimited number of these things, and they're kind of important to our capabilities, not just here, but all around the world. Perhaps there's a search going on. Well, what can we give the Ukrainians that is not going to drain our stockpiles of a certain type of capability, but give them some long-range capability? So maybe something short of Tomahawks, but still more than we've given them before. I think all of that's on the table. Trump, whatever Putin said to him on the phone call, Trump was heartened by that and thinks, well, maybe we could do it without flattening sections of Moscow with Tomahawk missiles, because there's some danger if we give that kind of capability that Russia could take things a step, above that, maybe go to tactical nukes, something that nobody wants him to do. I don't think he's really going to do that, but you can't dismiss it completely. You can't be cavalier about it. So, this President Trump is the deal maker, and that means to get the deal, he may make nobody 100% happy, but he's in that process. So I think we have to see. I think pressure is on Putin right now, not just from the world, not just from President Trump, but just from his own situation. Zelensky's analysis is not that far off.
And just, for the layman who's not familiar with the particulars of these different weapons and weapon systems, I think you sort of referenced it, but the unique value of the Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine would be the range, and they would be able to strike Moscow. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the range and the lethality. They're very capable weapons. They're very precise, and they're very expensive, and we don't have an unlimited number of them. So he would like that, top level capability that he doesn't have right now. I think his offer of a bunch of their, precision drones, which are tactical weapons, really. For us, we have drones, but the Ukrainians have developed some really cool tactical level ones that are different than what we have. That's the kind of, that's Trump's wheelhouse. Oh, okay, well, we'll trade you some stuff, some other good stuff. But yeah, the Tomahawks are up at the top level. Perhaps there's something not down at the tactical level, but what in the military we would call the operational level, which is between strategic and tactical. It's long range. It's in the back end of the Russian military formations, maybe some of the cities nearby, but not necessarily being able to range anywhere in across the Russian homeland, but into the Russian homeland. So there's some steps in between, not doing anything more than we're doing now and going to the Tomahawks. And those steps would still be pretty consequential.
And just as an aside, do you think it's true what Caroline Levitt said, that the selection of Budapest as the location for Trump and Putin to meet was made by a Huffington Post's mother?
Oh, I don't have any idea about that one.
Did you see that? Did you see that a Huffington Post reporter asked her, how was that choice made of location, or who made it? And she said, your mother. I mean, so we're getting down to the your mom level now with the White House and the D.C. press corps. I just thought that was an interesting moment.
Well, it shows that the D.C. press corps, if you want to work with the Trump administration, you can get a lot of things done. If you want to declare yourself an adversary, it's going to be much harder to get your job done, and maybe stop being so persnickety with them and just do your job of reporting the news.
Yeah, boy, I can't wait for the your mama joke off, like it's like a scene from The Barber Shop or something. All right, Venezuela. Let's go to our hemisphere. Venezuela had this to say about Maduro, who's closing ranks and, of course, complaining to the UN about the strikes on narco-terrorist boats, saying that's a violation of international law because he's such a committed proponent of international law and abiding it. But anyway, here's what Trump had to say about Maduro in no uncertain terms.
Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should we do to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your attention to this matter. FAFO is what's happening to Maduro, and Trump doesn't seem intent to change course because he's broken off talks about any sort of deal between Venezuela and the United States.
Well, I think what Trump is saying is, he's willing to negotiate with almost anybody, but not with a narco trafficker. And Maduro's regime right now is funded almost exclusively by narco trafficking. The Russians and the Chinese and stuff are not doing the funding stuff they may have done in the past with regimes like Maduro's. So he's totally dependent on drug money. And, Trump is not, while Trump loves to get natural resources, he loves to get access to markets, all that kind of stuff, that's his thing. He's not willing to take that sort of bribe to stop targeting the drugs, which, God bless him. Let's hope he cares more about the health and welfare of the American people than he does about getting some natural resources. And I think he believes he's on a track to get both. He's going to stop the drug trade. Hopefully he'll get rid of Maduro, and then those access to those natural resources will open from a business standpoint that, he'll, not to use the old cliche, but he'll have his cake and he'll be able to eat it too.
Well, sure, if that Nobel Prize winner Machado, the opposition leader, ultimately ascends to the presidency at some point. But he was asked about, whether or not he has green-lighted or would green-light a CIA takeout of Maduro. And, of course, he said, well, I'm not going to answer that kind of question. So what do you think is going on there in terms of the Trump administration's interest in regime change? I mean, is it going to be something where they are willing to push a kinetic event, as they say, to take Maduro out?
I don't know if he's willing to go to that level. I think he's willing to set the conditions, make Maduro as weak as possible so that the natural forces within his own country can get rid of him. But I'm not sure he wants to take on, if we topple a country, this is the old Colin Powell rule. If we break it, we own it. I don't think he wants to directly break that regime, but I think he wants to weaken it so that they can no longer be a threat to the United States, either directly or indirectly. And if in the process of doing that, Maduro disappears and our prize winner steps in and takes the reins, that's not a bad thing for America or the world, frankly.
No, that wouldn't be a bad thing. It'd be a very good thing. Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow to the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
You too. Thank you. And Stephen joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
According to a 2022 FBI statistic, less than 0.01% of all altercations require a lethal response. Now think about